B2 Fighting Series fans, your referee, Bobby Wambacher, has brought a stop to this fight. 2 minutes and 32 seconds into round number 3. Your winner by way of tap out due to strikes out of the blue corner, Ilyaz Mamadaliyev.
Monitor up. And what's up, everybody? This is Brady Grove bringing you another interlude episode of RotoBallers' official MMA podcast, Tap That. And with me today, he is the favorite guest of this show. It's been a long time since we've had him on. Everybody, and you heard from the fighting. What the announcer said in the ring after the fight is what I meant. Ilyaz Mamadaliyev. Ilyaz, how's it going, man? It's good to hear from you.
It is very good to hear from you too. Everything is great. When was the last time we talked? When we had an interview together?
Was it like January? Because
I think I was preparing for that the March fight, maybe. So I'm thinking somewhere around January, February, something like that.
Yeah,
because I know I was in preparation for that.
Yeah,
and then I had a few cancellations.
It was right after your TKO win.
Okay. So yes, it was right after that. That was the December fight. So we talked after that. Okay, I've had 2 fights after that.
Yeah, so we have that to talk about too. But so first off, let's talk about that submission victory, which happened on March 19th. Against Justin Welch in B2 Fighting Series 152. You're really cutting your teeth in the B2 Fighting Series ranks. It was a round 3 arm triangle choke submission against Justin Welch. So then after that fight, and I was really excited for you to see that result, because that was something after a lot of decisions in your amateur career.
Oh yeah.
You got the TKO and then you got the submission in quick succession. How did it feel? How did that, I know I had heard from you beforehand that the preparation had gone good and that you felt great, but how did the fight play out and how did it feel to get that submission under your belt?
To be completely honest with you, as an amateur, I had a lot of decisions. It was all decision wins. And once I turned pro and I had the TKO win, I think it kind of, the 5 minutes plays in my favor because as an amateur, it's 3-minute rounds. And then now as a pro, it's 5 minutes. So I used to, I don't want to say I didn't have enough time to finish the fight. I used to see the opportunities and stuff, but it would just not come. Now I'm, breaking the opponents and then finishing the fight. So it's not like anybody can go out there, get a knockout or something. But my wins, like if you look at all 3 of the last ones, I'm beating them and then I get the finish. So I think it's more impressive, that I'm able to do that. And the main reason has been, of course, the preparation. I'm working with, high level guys, and the coach I have now, his name is Joey. He's located in Cincinnati. He has a bunch of guys that he brings in for me, and he's motivated me. And then B2 also being a part of them. I'm 3-0 with them now, and they already offered something else, but they told me, whenever you're ready and you want to step back in, you can. That's what I like about them. Like even before I had my last fight, they already had a plan for the next one, and I was like, hold on, let's get through tonight, and then we'll because no matter how confident you are in a fight, my preparation was crazy for this because I had 2 fights get canceled. I was supposed to have a hometown fight. That's the one I've been waiting for a long time. For some reason, it's just not happening. I was actually fasting that month and I wanted to still fight. Basically, just off the top of my head, you get to eat before the sun rises and then you eat after, sunset. You don't have any water, no food until that time. But I was still willing to get in the cage and fight because it would have been on the last day of the holy month. I still was gonna, get out there and fight. But I told the promotion, I was like, look, I need somebody that I just want to stay busy. I want to get a hometown fight. But I told them straight up, I said, if it was any other time, I'll fight anybody. But in a moment like this, it's not fair for me to fight somebody that's really high level because of the fact that I beat people because of my conditioning. But when you're fasting and everything, even in training, I had a lot of days where I was getting lightheaded. So I don't think it would have been fair. And, then that didn't end up happening. I had 5 or 6 different people, decline. And then at a certain point, you're like, okay, I'm cutting weight and everything, but I have a feeling like no one's going to accept at this point. It's too short notice. And then I got offered a title fight for end of May. And that wasn't for B2, which sucked because I wanted to stay with B2. They get a lot of people to notice them, and the people in the company are amazing. So when I accepted it, I knew I was taking a risk. I didn't know the company. I just knew the guy, he messaged me and everything. And then 1 week, I think, before the fight, I got a text saying the show is canceled. They're moving it to one day after when my next fight was supposed to be, there was no way I was able to fight on June 25th for B2 and then June 26th for that company because the weigh-ins were not falling, on the same days. And luckily, I still got to do the B2 fight. That was more important for me, and it went amazing.
So, and I remember texting you like up until that fight that was supposed to be in May because I was excited to see the result of that one because that was for a title in that
Yes,
promotion, and that was going to be in Tennessee.
Tennessee. Yes.
And no, you seem really disappointed. I was disappointed, and but,
I, I
look,
was I was disappointed, but at this point, when things don't happen like that's the whole the reason behind my success recently has been because of the fact that I don't sit there and stress about things that are not in my power. Like I signed the contract, the guy signed the contract, but if the company didn't go through with the date, there's literally nothing I can do. It's not like I could offer to help in some way or, make sure the show goes on. The guy did end up fighting and he won he fought one day after me. It was a really tough matchup. That's why I was kind of looking forward to it because when I saw the matchup for my style, I think basically my style was a bad matchup for him. And I think a lot of people, even if they have, like, I saw the guy, he was actually at the B2 fights, I believe. I saw him backstage, but I had to focus on the other guy and everything. And, they told me I could fight him in September, but we'll have to see. I hate planning that far ahead because, I need to make sure I'm good first, healthy, and then we'll see what's next. But I want to keep fighting for B2 though.
oh yeah, I think you found a great rhythm in B2, and it's interesting that you say that thing about not wanting to stress about things that are out of your control because that's something I think that we've known each other for about a year plus now, which
Yeah, over a year now.
crazy because that started during COVID and everything, and so in times worked weird. But I feel like that's something that you've like gotten a lot better at already. Is one, you're 23. It could only hurt you to look past the next thing.
Right.
Yeah, and I think one thing that I think that you're like embodying more, or maybe that's not the right word, but and something that like I've kind of learned watching your career go on is like there's always when you've got B2's attention and there's all these other local promotions, there will always be a next fight if you want one, and so that sounds really good. And again, it sounds really good that you're not looking too far ahead because I think that's where a lot of people who have hit a good stride, I think, kind of trip themselves up. Is it once you're on a good run, it's like, okay, what's next, what's next, what's next, but it's like no, you can only do what's next. You can't do things 8 months in advance.
Right. I did want to stay active. That was the only reason I wanted to fight as often as I wanted to, because I obviously want to, while I'm in shape, not get out of shape. I used to make that mistake before where I would have a fight booked and then I would start getting in fight shape for it. But now I'm like constantly training and I don't have to worry about being in good shape because I know I'm confident and I know I'm in good shape. I can now improve my skills. And I think it's been showing. For example, in my last fight, I didn't get any takedowns on me. He did get my back at one point. But that was because I threw a flying knee off the cage and he was able to grab onto me. But I kind of got lucky because there wasn't a lot of time left. I made a mistake, but I'm gonna work on fixing those little mistakes that I'm making. But as far as maturing to the point where I know things come at the right time, you can't force things to happen. You just wait. And there were times, like even with this fight coming up, I was like, what if it gets canceled? Like until the weigh-ins, I didn't really believe like, okay, the fight's about to happen. Going back to back of fights getting canceled, and then I even had family like, are you really going to fight this time and stuff? So I can't really focus on stuff like that. I could just focus on showing up, making weight. I made weight 3 different times, even though fights were getting canceled. Obviously, I didn't step on the scale at the weigh-ins, but I would, be on weight at home, and just to kind of mentally be like, okay, I made the weight. Because I think we talked about it, but a year ago, I had booked exactly 1 year ago to that last fight I had. I booked a fight, and then I was overweight, and I was trying to make weight. I got hospitalized and everything. And ever since that, like, I remember even back then, I was like, nope, fighting is not for me. If I cannot, make this weight and everything, maybe fighting isn't for me, because I was like, health comes first and everything. And then after that, I made the decision to just train all the time. Like when I got my head cleared, and it's good to not make decisions when you're at a bad point, because, you make a lot of mistakes like that. And I remember just now where, I'm running either every day or every other day at least. I might miss a day or two here and there, but just being in shape like that, where, when it's time to get in fight shape, I'm already ready, and, I don't have to worry about my conditioning or anything. And what's crazy is, like, I haven't shown everything. The coach I'm working with right now, he's motivating me. I'm about to drop down to 145. I never thought it was possible, but now with me walking around in shape, much better shape, it's going to be very easy. And finally, I'm going to start fighting people that are my own size, and it'll be skill for skill, instead of me trying to, me being at a disadvantage with size or anything against them.
So you're gonna move down to 145.
Yes, the next fight will be at 145. I fought at 70. I have a win at 70, 65, 60, I believe, 55. I only didn't have a win at 50. I had one fight at 150, but I want to focus on 45, because my coach said if you want to get to the next level, which I know you can, we need to do it at the right weight class.
Now, and I think that might be, and there's a lot that goes into any particular matchup, but I think that could be one of the final pieces of the puzzle for you, is that if I'm somebody from a higher level promotion and I'm watching your fights and trying to scout out what kind of talent you are, the one criticism I would have right now is that you might not have superior finishing power on the feet. But I think that one, you've really combated that idea over the last few fights, and we're gonna get to that in a second. But also, the size differential, that does matter. But at 145, I agree. I think it neutralizes a lot of the physical disadvantages that you would have, and I think that honestly, now that you've adopted this, mindset about staying in shape and whatnot, I think it's probably a much more natural weight class for you.
Yes, because, for example, when I was fighting, I weighed in the day before, I was 155 on the dot. And then next day I walked in around 57 or 58. And my opponents are probably walking in there 10, 15, 20 pounds heavier than me. And on the feet, so far, I don't think I've been, I know for a fact I haven't been rocked or anything. So power wise on the feet, I can handle it. But the only time I think the size disadvantage is going to, be an issue for me is if it starts being against somebody that's going to be holding on to me, grabbing onto me and stuff. And the guy I just fought, he's had fights at 45 and 55. And I could already tell, because he wasn't, he was more developed because of his age and everything. His body is more mature than mine is. And you can kind of tell that right away when you start getting into the grappling and stuff. But on the feet, you don't really feel it or anything. And I know I hit hard, and I haven't really thrown full power or anything, because even when I'm throwing, trying to finish the fight, I'm throwing it sloppy. It's not with a lot of good technique or anything. And the better shape I get in, especially at 45, I'm going to be able to throw a lot more combinations. I'm going to be, because I'm going to have the confidence, because I've went with the bigger guys and I was able to take their punch and take, the clinch work and everything. At 45, I think I'm going to have even better conditioning, and I'll be able to show even more skills.
So, and to rewind a few different points, because I'd thought of this and then we got onto something else. That's something I'd never thought about before, is the fasting that you talked about. And, the fact that you either have to work around that, or you have to find a way to where you have to be, be in a state where you feel ready. And so is that, I don't want to get this wrong, but is the holy month called Ramadan?
Yes.
Okay.
The you see, I know you're saying getting around it, but I think I might have made a mistake because of the fact that if you're gonna do it at a high level, now I understand why, guys like Habib were taking a break during that. Even Hamzat, who recently fought, he wasn't fasting because obviously, and in a high level fight like that, like when he fought against Gilbert Burns, imagine if he was fasting the whole day and then he got to eat for a little bit before he walks out. Like, you don't have enough time to rehydrate or anything. And even for a guy like me who's not cutting any weight, it's difficult because the whole month, your body is adjusting to eating less and eating at different times. And that was the only hard part. Like, I would be in training and it would be really hot in the room or something, or just hot outside, and you would get lightheaded. Like, my body wasn't giving up on me, but it's weird to explain, like mentally, and my heart was there, but at the same time my body actually was just giving up on me. Like, it wouldn't push as much as I normally could. That's the only big difference. But I still wanted to, because it was a hometown fight, I didn't want to wait longer. I was like, I can do it. I was willing to do it. See, that's why after, when that fight got canceled, I kind of changed my mentality, and I think, okay, if things don't happen, maybe there was a reason. Maybe I go out there, I could have got knocked out or something, got hurt, seriously hurt. So it's good that it didn't happen.
Well, and that's the thing, and that's where you get to like either career mistakes or like health implications, because so many fighters are such mentally strong people and so mentally tough
Right.
that sometimes their mental tough, especially in a situation like that, it's like your mental toughness can only propel you so far. At some
Right.
point, your body actually needs some sort of fuel to be able to do the things you need to do to be ready to fight.
Not just fuel, but you need to listen to your body. Like, when, even during this training camp, as hard as I was training, luckily I didn't have any, crazy injuries or anything. I I did, going into the fight, kind of had like my knee was in, it was an uncomfortable type of pain, but it wasn't torn or anything like that. It's healed now and everything. But because, I was kicked on the knee, and it was my own fault because I was moving back and they weren't really aiming for the knee, but I moved back at the time. And I remember not having enough time to be able to rest, to heal up properly, to be, basically continue training. And then I remember the fight getting closer and I'm like, okay, there's no way I can miss a day or something. But when you leave, and there's when you're done with the fight, I like to take a little bit of time. Like, I went into training right away after the fight. I think it was on Monday. No. I fought and then I went into training right away. I ran the next day. When I came home, I went for a run because now I'm obsessed with being in shape. Like, if I don't run or something, it makes me feel bad. If I don't go to training, it makes me feel bad. And I don't want anybody to have an advantage over me when it comes to working hard, but I do know when to rest. Like, I listen to my body, and that's helped me big time. Like, if for some reason mentally, like after my fight in May got canceled, instead of going right back into training camp and getting ready for it, I took 2 or 3 days off. I was running, but I did no bag work, nothing, because I needed for, my mind to have a fresh start, basically, and when I did that, it was a huge difference. Like, I remember being in camp for that fight before it got canceled, and then when it got canceled and I took a few days off, I came back completely different. And I'm gonna, continue doing that, knowing what's best for me and what's best for my mind and body.
And especially, it's a more careful game that you in particular have to play sometimes, because your conditioning often is your greatest weapon in there.
Yes.
But
Yes.
and you want to be as, conditioned as possible for those 3 rounds, but at the same time, you don't want to be dead legged going into that either, and I think that's like why running is a good thing. And running is, we're in an era where it's like there's a million different like popular places to go work out, and different like different like workout routines that people do, and it's become much more of a science now. But like running is way slept on, because that's something you can do over and over and over again, and I think you're way less likely to get burned out on it.
Yes, a lot of people, I don't know why they avoid that. Like, they running, for me, is you get to think and you're getting in shape, but at the same time you get to kind of go and talk to yourself. And I sometimes don't even run with music. Like, I did an interview and they were asking me, what type of music do you listen to while running? Sometimes I don't even listen to anything, because the best thing you can do is just focus, and like you get to think and kind of set goals and stuff. And I don't like to set goals too far ahead, but like I just focus on what's coming up, what I can do. And then like I never like, I remember watching the guys fights, but I never think, okay, he's gonna hit me with this or he's gonna hit me with that, because I used to do that before. I used to worry, but now I just look at my own fights and I'm like, okay, I did this good, I didn't do that good, I need to improve on that. And I think that's why I've had the success I've had. The running, especially, that's helped me big time. Like in the past, I used to run too, but I never used to track how much I'm running, or, I just used to get out and run until I would get bored, not even tired, just bored. But now I do it so often and I track everything. I, make sure the time is right, the distance and everything. I and I haven't even pushed myself to like the crazy levels. And, now I have a coach that's helping me and, telling me like, we're going to get you to this level and that level. And it's motivating. And then I recently, this week, I got a fight offered for Shamrock FC, a title fight. And, I obviously, like with my hand not fully healed, I kind of hurt my thumb in the fight. And instead of, letting it heal, I went back into training and messed it up a little more. But right now it's healing properly. I would take something like that. I'd be stupid enough to take it. But now I'm mature enough to realize, okay, this company recognizes that, I exist, in MMA and everything. So it makes me happy, motivates me. But I don't jump on opportunities just by, saying like, hey, I'm the man, I can take on this. No, I got to think smart, and, I got to think about the future. Like, let's say I take a fight like that short notice, unless it's the UFC or like a bigger promotion like Bellator or something. My coach said, taking short notice fights is not fair, because that person has prepared the whole time and you're putting your life on the line. You go out there, you get injured just because of the money, it's not worth it.
And yeah, that's the thing, is that, Shamrock FC, great promotion. We see a lot of different prospects come through there, and that is a meaningful fight offer. But at the same time, there's like, there's 5 or 6 promotions that are of about equal strength as Shamrock. And then there's, a slightly higher tier. There's the LFAs, the CESs, the CFFCs, so,
Yes.
and, it's not something that you want to, hang on to too long. But like, again, you are 23 years old. This isn't like something like you're chasing a last opportunity or anything. And,
Right.
Nothing makes someone fall off the prospect radar faster than losing to someone that they maybe shouldn't have lost to in,
Exactly.
in a
You are right about that.
in a bad fashion that they shouldn't have. And then you might have, they might have scratched you off their list forever.
You are right about that. I know exactly what you're talking about. Taking a short notice fight, you do, there is a big reward if you win, but at the same time, you're risking a lot by, because when you lose, it's like, okay, he's just that guy who accepted that fight and, didn't do much with it. You know what I mean? But then there's also, going out there and showing what you got and stuff, and you still coming, one of those fights where you, even if you lose, like that Gilbert Burns and Chimaev fight, even though Gilbert Burns lost, it, showed how much heart he has and showed he's high level. And then same thing for Chimaev, even though he won, they were like, well, now he has this and he has that. So I would have been in a similar situation, but I had to let my body heal. And it's just nice to see those type of companies like that. I've seen, before, Titan FC, they had a fight, short notice fight offer for me and stuff like that. But I don't want to jump on opportunities just because, I want to fill the spot and show I'm the man. If I'm injured, I can't, there's nothing I can do about it.
That's the thing. There's opportunities, where it's like, those are, I don't want to call them lottery tickets, but they're, you're taking a risk in a lot of opportunities. But within opportunities, there's showcases. And I think what you're waiting for, what seems like it'd be best is like an opportunity to showcase everything that you are. And for that, you need adequate time to prepare. And especially if it's going to be against a guy who's of a similar caliber prospect as yourself, because that's a challenging thing. You guys are fighting for the same thing, and you
Right.
have similar goals. And so those are 2 different things. And especially with the Contender Series and with all the different promotions that are on the UFC Fight Pass, it's like we have seen a lot of guys come in as a next big thing who fall flat and then you don't hear from again. There's a lot of big fish in small ponds in the sport of mixed martial arts.
Yes, you are right about that. And I don't want to rush anything, like you said, I'm 23. I'm about to be 24 at the end of the month, but it's only been, I've been fighting since 2016. I've already had 13 fights, not a bad record. And now I'm finishing, people, my last 3 wins are all finishes. So as long as I continue that, I think I'm going to get noticed anyways. So there's no point of rushing and, trying to prove I'm, this or that. When the time comes, I think it'll, a lot of people like that. I've noticed that when they're young and, they're a prospect, they want to rush things, but it always comes, at the perfect time. And, I don't know when that will be, but for the first time, I think in my career, I do believe, especially going down to 45, I'm even more confident. And for the first time in my career, I think I can hang with those guys. Before it was like, okay, I'll get in there with them. But now slowly, as I get more confident, as I get older, I think I can compete with them and actually beat them.
Well, plus, man, in this sport where we see prospects of all I mean, like, people in the contender series, across different weight classes, they come in as prospects at 32 and 33 years old. I mean, that was what Greg Hardy was when he came into the UFC. But take a look at Chris Curtis, a guy who is from Cincinnati and actually trained at Son of Simon at the same time that I was there. And he had retired after 2 straight losses the same night in PFL. Now he's like consensus a top 15 middleweight in the world and is stepping in,
About to fight Jack, who's top 10.
which is amazing, dude, because that means like with one more win, Chris Action Man Curtis could be like next in line for a middleweight title shot.
Yes.
That's a guy who thought he'd never get his shot. His perfect time came, and it had to come, with him being a plus 280 underdog in his first 2 fights in the UFC.
And now look where he's at. You know what I mean? That timing is everything. A lot of people, underestimate, but timing is everything.
That's a great thing about this sport, and any sport where it's an individual as opposed to a team component, is like Chris Curtis has been one of the best stories in all of MMA, for the last 365 days. And that's a guy that you had to be really, really committed as a fan to the sport to know who he was before that.
Right.
Now everybody loves him. He said this is the first time in his life that, or maybe in his career, I forget the actual quote, but that he's not living paycheck to paycheck. That's an amazing story. It's a thing that makes this sport great.
Yes, hearing stories like that is motivating, because I do remember, following the story, and I had heard that he didn't want to do it anymore because he hadn't got the call from the UFC and everything. And then next thing you know, that's why staying prepared is very important. He's the type of person who's always, prepared. And when he gets like the short notice fight that he just now got, I'm sure he wouldn't have accepted it if he wasn't in shape or he wasn't, healed up and everything. So when you stay in camp, you don't got to get ready, and then you can take opportunities like that and, get to show yourself.
Okay, so one and okay, before we move on, I did want to go back to what you said about Hamzat and Gilbert. Just that, isn't it funny that like, and especially with Hamzat now, because Hamzat has been a sensation since he really broke through to the top level, and we love talking about Hamzat, but like every time you're on, and isn't it funny that like he gets that win, and it's like, this is a guy that was a huge step up in competition.
Oh, yes. A lot of people don't understand that, because of the fact that he was dominating everybody, they expected the same thing with Gilbert. And I do think in that fight, had he, taken it to the ground and held him there and, punished him on the ground, as good as, Gilbert is on the ground, I think he could have been, he would have been able to do that, because as you saw, in the fight, he was able to defend Gilbert's takedowns, and then he was taking him down, but he just didn't want to go there. I think he wanted to put on a show for the people. That's where he kind of messed up. But at the same time, I think, we had a talk with the coaches and everything too, and everybody I talked to about that fight. Everyone agrees that it was good that that happened to Hamzat now, instead of, when he fights for the title and then he sees adversity. It's good that, because now he's only going to be on a different level conditioning wise, and being careful and understanding that, putting on a show for the fans, as long as you're winning and everything, of course it's good. But he could have went out there, dominated, they would have been like, whoa, he's still dominating everybody and stuff like that. But now they know he's a fighter, like he can fight through things and, adversity and, being knocked down and everything.
That's the important component, I think, is the adversity, because we've seen plenty of fighters. I mean, like, I guess look at Sean O'Malley. When he faced adversity against Cheeto, something was wrong, and that wasn't something he had to work through before. But as far as putting on a show for the fan, that is where a lot of people make a mistake. What it's a show is when you continue to dominate your opponent in a way that we've never seen before. But
Right.
even going back to Habib, the one fight where I thought Habib actually looked, or I guess there were two fights where Habib was actually a little bit vulnerable. In the weirdest ones, it was Michael Johnson and it was Ali Aquinta. In the Ali Aquinta fight, he seemed content to box with Al.
Yes.
It seemed like it was. I mean, Habib still tuned him up. Obviously, he is the better fighter. But at the end of the day, I was like, a lot of friends were saying like, well, I think like Habib was trying to work on his striking and his boxing. I was like, well, he picked the wrong time to do it in the octagon in a main event. So yeah, I do agree. And but then I saw people talking about Gilbert Burns, and they're like, well, Gilbert Burns, he just got outstruck by Kamara and Hamzat, who are two technically unsound fighters. I'm like, yeah, sure, if that might be true, but they're also just different. They have physical tools that Gilbert doesn't necessarily have.
Right. And when it comes to their background, like having the wrestling background, that's why I've been working on wrestling a lot too. I know most, high level guys have a really good wrestling background. Even if they don't use it, it gives you it gives you an advantage going into a fight. If you know you can take the fight to the ground at any minute, any second, your striking is that much better because you can throw without hesitating. Oh, I'm gonna get taken down if I throw this or that. So I'm starting to, I'm not on that level, obviously, but slowly, like with my wrestling growing, I feel more confident. I've been working a lot on wrestling and, different partners. I have a guy, I didn't get to wrestle with him, but he's recovering from a knee injury, but he was in the Olympics and, getting advice from somebody like that. I got to box with them and it's fun working with guys like that. I have teammates that fought same night as me. One of them is now 7-0 in MMA total, and then the other guy, he's probably he could probably get a call from Contender Series, Bellator, or something really soon. Working with guys like that constantly and different weight classes it's fun.
And the thing about the wrestling too is the effect that not only that it has for your confidence, but what it has to do to your opponent's mindset is if you've demonstrated takedown defense, that's something that might be off the table that was otherwise in their arsenal. And if
Exactly.
you show you can put someone on their back every once in a while, that's something that they always have to be thinking about. It affects the way they strike.
Yeah, in this fight that I just had, the guy was, I didn't even know that, but when I was watching the fight, the replay, they said he was a purple belt under, I think they said Carlson Gracie. I don't want to be wrong, but so I remember watching the fight and then, he missed a few takedowns and I was able to defend pretty easily. And the guy messaged me after the fight. He was like, well, it's because you were slippery and sweating. That wasn't it. I worked on takedown defense every time I was in the gym, so, but, when he would go to the ground, I was doing ground and pound, and I had people like fans. That's why I don't listen to the fans as much anymore if it's negative, because I remember people telling me like, "Oh, why didn't you just get on top and finish the fight?" Like I was punishing him to the body to where I would hit him to the stomach, and I can hear that he's literally saying shit, and he's cursing every time I'm kicking him to his foot or hitting him on the body and everything, and why would I risk, with the performance? I personally think that was probably one of the best performances I had, and I still didn't get to show everything, because striking wise, I had a little bit of a difficulty because of the fact that, I was staying in my corner the whole time. That was my game plan, and it played really good in my favor because when you go to the opponent's corner, you're kind of afraid that, if you get taken down or whatever, they're going to get advice and they get to see what you can't. And I try to stay in my corner the whole time and it works. And they speak English. He speaks English. So when they're saying throw the right hand, he hears that. And now I'm kind of hesitating throwing. That was the first time that happened to me where I was kind of afraid of throwing a combination or something because, my opponent could hear what they're calling out. So from now on, I'm going to have somebody that speaks Turkish in my corner that way, and somebody that understands the sport that can give advice, whatever the coach says, they can translate it to me and, say exactly that. That way the opponent doesn't get a favor. But I had people telling me like, hey, you should have finished the fight earlier. Like in the first round, you had a chance. I knocked him down each round, I believe, but he just didn't want to get finished. So like, there's nothing I can do about that. And they were like, why didn't you, finish it on the ground? He's a purple belt. Why would I risk it?
And so, did you know he was Carlson Gracie purple belt like going into the fight, or is that something you found out after?
Okay. But basically, I didn't know that he was a purple belt. Only found out that, night of after the fight when I was watching the replay, on my phone. I remember hearing that and I was like, shit, I didn't even know that because I fought a brown belt in the December fight. He was a brown belt in jiu-jitsu, and beating guys like that, survive, like it gives me confidence. I knew there was times like I remember even going into his guard and he had already grabbed onto my arm and he was trying to I am pretty sure he was going to either go for a triangle or armbar. That's what most of his wins had came from on the ground. And I was like, there's no point of trying to prove a point that, I worked on my ground game or, I'm more confident in my ground game. You do what's best for you. Like I know on the feet, he did hit me when he would like pressure me and stuff, but that was only because I wanted to be in kind of a crazy fight. I was hoping there would be like some type of blood from me, but because I want to scare my family. Like all the members are like, oh no, we don't want to see you bleed or this and that. And I kind of wanted a win with blood involved, my own blood too, but it didn't end up happening.
Well, I could kind of put together when I looked at his record before the fight, and I mean, just looking at like what he's done, that he was probably more of a ground guy.
Yeah,
And that's the thing, is why not to listen to the people that say that is not necessarily because it's negative, is because it's ignorant. It doesn't make any sense to
it
suggest,
doesn't.
because if you go into his guard, especially when you feel immediately, like you can tell from the way that he's positioning his body and what he's grabbing immediately, the instincts that he's immediately displaying, you can already tell so many things from that. If you engage him in his guard and you go for a silly quick finish, there's like a 25 to 50% chance that you could end up in a really bad position. If you do what
Exactly.
you did in that fight, which was really well thought out, there's like a 5% to 0% chance that something goes wrong. And so people who say that don't know what they're talking about.
Exactly. Going into the fight, I even in the warm-ups, I did zero kicks. Like we didn't even warm up the kicks and stuff. And the reason was, with my knee, it wasn't like moving forward or backwards that my knee would hurt. It was like certain angles, and of course, like when you're kicking, you got to turn the ankle, turn the foot and everything. And I didn't want to risk it. So we didn't warm up any, kicks back there and everything. And then I remember going into the fight and the coach was like, when you're in the fight, kick, obviously with the adrenaline, you won't feel it as much. And I do remember kicking. And when the first one landed and he didn't block it, I was like, okay, I'm gonna just keep going for it until, my leg hurts. And at a certain point when I started to see the redness and when he started cussing, that kind of played in my favor because I was like, okay, this man is in pain. But I never thought that he would have actually tapped to the kicks as bad as I was hurting him. And I wasn't really throwing full power kicks. It was just landing each time I threw it. And eventually, with time, it started to build up and start to hurt him more and more. But I thought it was going to go to decision. Like I didn't know how much time. That's the one thing that sucked. This fight, I didn't really hear how much time I have left unless it was like 10 seconds left. So I didn't know if I should, go for the finish or because with the finish and big mistake I used to make before, I would look for the finish. Like I wanted to get the knockout or the submission or whatever. But now it just comes like randomly. Like I never knew I would have been able to kick the guy and, he would tap or something like that. It just comes naturally.
That's it. It makes me think that he didn't do enough homework on you because, the leg kick is not something that you have ever shied away from. And
Yeah.
and plus, I've never seen anybody so clearly exclaim after so many leg kicks that they've taken. Like I was shocked watching the replay of the fight and the highlights that you posted on Snapchat. Everybody follow him on Snapchat, by the way, official_Ilyaz. But like I've never seen somebody take that many leg kicks and yell a clear obscenity out loud. It's like you'd think you would do everything you could to conceal how much that hurt, but he couldn't.
Exactly. He just couldn't at that point. Even like when he was laying, he laid there for a few minutes and we were watching the fight replay. My grandma never watches it on my dad's side. And I put it and right away, like when she saw him on the floor, they were like, no, she's not going to be able to watch the whole thing. Just skip to the end. Well, that's where I messed up because even her seeing a leg kick, in the stand up, she was already like, oh, why are you doing that to him? And then I remember skipping to the end and she saw that and she almost had a heart attack because she was like, that's somebody's son, why are you doing that? That's, just like how you are, he's somebody else's son, and I told her like, because with my family, like I almost had an argument with my dad because they always used to say that I'm too nice for MMA and it doesn't fit me, like it doesn't suit me well because of the fact that they think I feel bad for the people. Like, of course, when we're in a fight, I'm there to hurt them. They're there to hurt me, but I'm not, I would never try to hurt or injure somebody to a point where like it, hurts their health or their future or something. Obviously I know they have a family. Like I've even had people tell me like, hey, why do you go and check on them? Like if you have a TKO or a finish like I did with the leg kicks, they're like, just be proud of it and don't go over there and check. Why? Is that going to make me look more savage or is that going to make me look more dangerous because I didn't go check on the person after I beat him? I don't know. The whole nice thing, like it used to affect me before. Like everyone would be like, oh, you're too nice. You're not trying to hurt them. What can I do if that person is tough enough to get back up and, keep fighting? Like the only thing I can do is continue fighting too.
That's the thing is that like nice or mean, like those are, I mean, people have those qualities, but at the end of the day, this is a sport that, everybody has mutually agreed to participate in. It doesn't matter if you're nice or mean. There's people that, I mean, take Cowboy Cerrone. There's people that pretend to be nice who aren't nice. Yeah, it doesn't really matter. It's a sport, that you have all agreed to participate in. And so people take their motivation from different places. It's competition. For a lot of people, it's getting past a lot of things, in their life. Whatever it has to be that motivates you, if it works, it works.
Like the last guy I fought before the March fight against Justin. In that fight, because there was like a few people talking from his side, I don't know if they were related to him or his friends, that kind of had me where I had extra motivation. I didn't need it, but I had extra motivation to go in there and, hurt him. But when I say hurt him, obviously not, health wise or anything, just in the fight. And I remember in the pre-fight interviews, they were like, oh, we can see that you're amped up and, what are you going to do and stuff. And I told them, I said, I'm going to be, just I'm going to throw a little extra harder, but I'm not going to, make mistakes or anything. I'm not going to, try to go in there and act like it's a street fight or anything. I still wanted to stay composed and, slowly win. And I think that's the key with me. Like I can be in a fight where it's like a brawl. If I have to brawl, I will brawl. If I have to wrestle to win, now I'm more complete as a fighter and I can do all of it. So I'm prepared for anything basically.
And so, yeah, so that's an interesting because it's such a like normal reaction for. I mean, I was just watching the video yesterday of Conor McGregor's media tour against Jose Aldo, and it continued. Like I get so disappointed in Jose every time I watch it because like, what are you doing, man? You know what he's trying to do.
Right.
He's just trying to make you mad and set up one punch that he predicted was going to end the fight. You know what would really upset, your opponent and all the people talking trash from his corner? If you finished him with an arm triangle choke. That would steam all of them. It doesn't have to be, a violent thing. Both of you are in there to win. However it ends up happening, it ends up happening.
Right. I think if you can control your anger, and that's the one good thing about me, like being nice. That's the good part of it. I know it, maybe in some ways a bad thing. I can't hate on a person, especially even if it's a person I'm about to fight. We talked about this before, I believe, where, I don't ever see this person and then we sign a contract to fight each other, to put on a show for the fans. And then after that, we, either end up friends or kind of know each other, like I have some opponents we text every once in a while, wish each other luck and stuff, in upcoming fights and stuff like that. But you have to be able to control your anger, let it help you instead of, letting it hurt you.
Well, that's, where actually, I mean, yeah, being a nice guy, but I think more than that, being a little more like level-headed. It's like, you're not someone who hates on your opponents, and so you're not giving them any extra motivation, which is, something that you don't need to do. And not only that, I think it probably makes you easier to channel, everything. And, if you are a little, if you do have a little extra motivation going into the fight. It's not stupid, it's not a stupid feeling where you're going to go in and rush and try to knock his head off. It's, all right, I want to beat this guy. I'm going to hit him a little bit harder. Those are two different things. And it's, hard for people to kind of separate if, they're
Right.
familiar with this sport. It's not as simple as, a nice guy's going to hit soft and a mean guy's going to hit hard. That's not the way it plays out, especially, if you're emotionally intelligent like you are.
I think that's one of, like, other than conditioning, that's probably one of the best things about me, like being a few steps ahead of people, because of the fact that, like, when I go in there, obviously a lot of people go in there and they're like, oh, I'm gonna knock this guy out. Me, when I go in there, I'm like, I don't want to get knocked out. And then everything else comes, naturally. Like, of course I know how to punch and kick and stuff. But if I, look out and make sure, I don't get knocked out or anything, then I don't make as many mistakes. Like if I go in there trying to put on a show, swinging with everything I have, even if I'm conditioned enough to go the 3 rounds, I'm just gonna go out there looking like it's a street fight. I never, like, when we're backstage at the fights, whether it's B2 or whoever else, Premier that I fought for, you're back there waiting and you have to watch everybody else fight. And before, I never used to watch it, and I would just sit back there and wait for my fight to show up, and then I would just walk out and fight. But lately, when my teammates walk out, I walk out with them to feel the energy. Like B2 had 2 nights in a row where they were doing at the same arena. And I fought on the second night, but the first night when I had a teammate fighting, I wanted to go out there and walk out with him to feel the energy. And it helps because when I get in now, I'm more calm and I've already felt the crowd energy, and, it doesn't bother you as much. And I used to make a mistake before where I don't advise anybody else to do it. Like I'd go on my opponent's page, if it was a public page, and you watch a highlight of their fight or something, or you watch a training video and you're like, damn, I'm about to fight this guy. Like a lot of people won't admit that, but it is a scary feeling. But at the same time, I'm like, okay, but this is working against other people. So with me, it's going to be different. That's what helped me a lot too, being confident in my own skills and not worrying about what they do.
And now, was the fight with Nick Maupin, was that a co-main event of that night for B2?
Yes.
Awesome. Now, so the lead up to that fight, were you working on anything different in training other than just the greater emphasis on wrestling and whatnot?
I was throwing, like, when it came to sparring, I was basically, my body was a lot tougher. I don't know if that makes sense, but sparring with higher level guys who were conditioned, I was getting hit more often, and my body was getting used to it. I know not to the head. I don't like to take damage to the head or anything, but my legs were more conditioned. My body itself was more conditioned. In the fight with Nick, for example, he hit me to the body. They thought he had me hurt and everything. It was very good shots to where, like, it took the air out of me. But if I hadn't been conditioned, you know, or knew how to react to a situation like that because of sparring or something, I would have easily maybe, showed something like that I'm in pain, and then he would have just continued doing. So just the preparation, it's like, I know a lot of people say it, oh, I prepared much better for this. I really did, and my confidence is through the roof right now. And I want to continue. I want to have at least 1, maybe 2 more fights this year, because if I fight before December, that'll be my 4th fight in 1 year. But I want to try to see if I can get 5, because I've done 3 fights in 1 year. I want to see if I can do 4 or 5.
Yeah, and ending off the year at a 5-1 record would be pretty nice too.
Oh yeah.
And so in the fight with Maupin, a little more. So one thing I thought that you did, so this was like the epitome for you of like breaking a dude down. And I do think it was the finest performance of your career, because it was a finish that came in the 3rd round. It was something that was steady, calculated, but it had a lot of different elements too. Like, you used his momentum against him really well. Like, you timed your shots really well when he was rushing in. And,
Yes.
You had him thinking about those leg kicks so much. And one of my favorite parts of the fight is you hit him with a leg kick, he screamed, and then you went high kick right after and nailed him with it. It was gorgeous. And then the other one was when he rushed in, and I think you hit him with a leg kick and then a huge right hook right after that connected really hard. Those were 2 of the most poignant things about the fight, is that the timing of your striking was great, and he clearly was thinking so hard about those leg kicks when when they started to come out from under him and he started screaming. Again, it's just so funny because I haven't seen it ever before. But
My only regret is when I threw that head kick, as beautiful as it was, I didn't think like that would. I normally don't throw any head kicks in training and stuff, so it's only on the bag and everything. And now I'm gonna practice that more because I think in the future, if I hurt somebody, I saw my teammate do it the day before, where his name is Perry Stargell, and he's a upcoming guy too, rising star. He was throwing leg kicks and no, not leg kicks, body kicks on the guy, and he ended up hurting the body really well to the point where he was getting knocked down. His opponent was getting knocked down with body shots already, and he switched it up to the head kick. That's why I kind of remembered that. I was like, okay, his leg is tired. Let me just try to kick upstairs. And when I did that, it landed, but I didn't put enough power into it. I didn't think it was going to land, honestly. But walking around at a lower weight, I think that's helped my reaction, the timing even more, because before I would walk around a lot heavier out of camp. And then when I would get in shape, my conditioning was well, but I was just not as fast as I could have been. My reaction, time wasn't as quick. And at 45, I think I'm going to be even crazier with the timing.
And you really did punish the body, as that was the thing. You broke him down from the bottom up.
Yes.
At a certain point. And I know you touched on a few things, but so what are some things that in rewatching the fight and, in the course of the fight that you noted that you wanted to improve on moving forward?
I think throwing in the past, for example, when I would hurt somebody, I would throw the similar shots where it would be like an overhand or looping overhand where I wouldn't look or anything. I fixed it a little bit for this fight. I was throwing uppercuts when I would hurt him. I don't think I threw uppercuts before in my fight, which is crazy. I've had 12 fights before this. And when I had a guy hurt, I would just throw either, a straight left or a straight right, or overhand or something. But I need to just throw more combinations. I have enough combinations. I have the speed, the conditioning for it. I just have to keep getting more confident with the strikes and putting in more work at the gym, pulling it off in sparring. Like sometimes in sparring, I don't want to hit the guys, because they're, obviously training partners and stuff, and you feel bad for hurting people. But I need to start throwing things. Even if I don't throw it hard, I just need to throw it out there just to feel the combination land. So it gives me confidence to throw it in the fight. And wrestling wise, I could have even done it in this fight, but I just didn't want to take the risk, especially after the performance I was having. I didn't want to mess up and, just to show off my wrestling. But I think if I wanted, I could have easily taken him down and, got back up and then did it again and again. I kind of had that. I didn't have a game plan, but that was a part of my skill set that I wanted to show off. I didn't get to, but I think in the future fights, when the time comes and it's needed, I will be able to show that off more, my ground game.
And that's the thing, why take him down when you can make his legs buckle underneath of him?
Right.
And I heard the ring announcer say this too, or the ringside commentators, I think it was, and you mentioned it earlier. That was like a pretty big B2 event for Vision MMA.
It was. We had that night. There's two different visions. One is in Dayton, and then the one in Cincinnati is where I'm training right now. We had a really good, successful night. We were 3-0 and all three finishes. So, and the guys, like the biggest difference has been those guys are around my size and everything, and the conditioning, like they're so conditioned and always in camp. Like even when they didn't have a fight scheduled, when I went to first start training, I started there in April, I believe, and they're constantly training, even if they don't have a fight scheduled. And then Jeremy, he's their 135 champ. He's about to be the 25 champ. He's in a tournament. He's a pro guy like him. Like I wanted to make sure I impressed him on fight night because he's the type of guy who focuses on the little details, like certain movements and certain things. Like I remember in the fight with Nick, I was moving towards his right hand, and he was a orthodox fighter, and you normally don't do that, but for some reason I moved that way a lot better, and I thought it was the better decision at that point. And I remember him yelling like, go to his left, because he doesn't really have anything. He just throws the hook and that's it. And once I started doing that, I was able to make the right adjustments to catch him with the punches that I was catching him with. And having guys like that in my training camp, that helped me see the little things that I need to change it's motivating because even if I don't get to pull it off, at least I'm seeing it and I'm noticing what I'm doing wrong.
Well, you know, that's a big advantage of having like a legit pro who's like a 135, 125 pound champ is like that's such a movement oriented, you know, weight class. And
Yes,
you
yes.
know, it gives you a whole new perspective on things that you might not even realize you're doing.
And not just that, but having, he's a black belt in jiu-jitsu. So like, although we didn't get to roll as much, we did wrestling a little bit and everything, but all the guys there, they have the wrestling, the ground game, which I needed a lot of, and striking. It's not just anybody can throw a punch, obviously, but when they can do it for like when on Fridays, I go there in the mornings for sparring session. It starts at 10 and we do kickboxing sparring in the beginning. And then once we're done, he'll get me right into MMA sparring. The coach, Joey, he'll say, this guy put on the MMA gloves and it's guys close to my size. And we just start sparring MMA. And it's not like, trying to hurt each other or anything, just getting better and just doing things you would do in a fight, trying to pull those type of things off. And that's been a big change too, where I'm doing more MMA sparring.
So are you commuting back and forth between Dayton and Cincinnati now, or what's the deal with that?
Yes, I do. It depends. Like I go up there for 2 days, but right now I'm gonna start going up to Cincinnati for 3 days a week. One of the days I do wrestling, just straight wrestling and conditioning, and then sparring on Fridays. Mondays it's wrestling, and now we're gonna try to put one more day in there to work on like small details of striking or wrestling or something, just to add another day. The only thing that sucks is the drive, but it's worth it because sometimes like if I'm late at work or something, I don't really have the time to, make it out there. That's the only thing that sucks because when it's close by 15, 20 minutes away, you can, leave work late and you still can, make it on time. But with this being an hour away from me, it's kind of hard sometimes, especially if I fall into traffic. But I do want to, there's a place here called Queen City. I've been there a few times. It's a grappling place. I'm going to go there as often as I can too. I've been there a few times a week, for wrestling or for sparring, but I want to do more grappling and, keep getting better with the ground game.
What is it like 40 minutes to an hour from Dayton to Cincinnati?
Yeah, they're at exit 7. I live around exit 50. Yes, so it's like a 50, 60 mile, trip. So sometimes it takes hours, sometimes less.
You know, I actually just started. I told you that I'm working up to taking the bar here in a couple weeks.
Yes.
And I actually just started working in Dayton, going in 2 days a week. So that's like an hour drive between like Columbus and Dayton. But I get off like exit like 41, like approaching Dayton, and then
I know exactly where that is. I have some family that lives there.
and then I get off like the it's called like the Troy Street, Valley Street exit.
I know that's where I started training. It was in that area. That's where I started MMA.
Right downtown. So I've been in Dayton a lot more lately. It's I mean, there's nothing like there's not a lot in between Columbus and Dayton, like there's a lot of like farms and there's one like horse farm along the way and everything, but like honestly not a bad drive. Like I prefer Dayton or Columbus to Dayton as a drive way more than I like Cincinnati to Columbus, where it's like, 2 lanes the entire way of like trucks blocking up.
And the driving is crazy in Cincinnati. Like I hate that because when I go there every day, like especially when I'm having a bad day, I hate it because I'll be in there like just, not having road rage, but just saying like, what are you doing? Like, let me go or, let me pass. And they don't care about that in that area.
Yeah, it's a lot, especially, I mean, I'm used to driving from like Lexington, Kentucky up to Columbus, Ohio. And the moment I pass over the river into Ohio and then it gets down to 2 lanes, it's like, this state has so many more people than we do in Kentucky. Why do we have 3 lanes in Kentucky and 2
Right.
all the way through Ohio? No, but that like, I mean, so I don't know, like, how's that commute like affecting like, I mean, everything. I mean, that's a lot more time you got to spend in the car. That I mean, just from my recent work schedule, I know that like that makes a lot of other things harder to fit in.
It is difficult because especially when you're having like a really bad day or something, I'll be on the road heading out there. And I know, for example, like on Mondays, the practice starts at 5. So I have to make sure I leave before 4, just in case, because around that time you get into traffic and stuff, and I got to make sure. And, sometimes like that, those 2 hours that are gone on the road, I know I could have been here doing something else, but it's definitely worth the drive, because those 2 days that I'm going up there, doesn't matter how much gas is being spent, how much time is being spent, it benefits me more than it, doesn't, basically.
Yeah, that's what you call an investment,
Yes, that's exactly how I see it.
and under the right mindset, driving can be a lot like running, maybe a
Oh
little
yeah, yeah.
cheaper.
That's when I like when I'm going to the gym some days, especially on like days I feel really good. It's one of the best things, because it's just me on my own driving, and I get to listen to music that I want to listen to, or just no music, just thinking on the way there. And it's a good hour basically driving, and just having to plan and see what's next and stuff like that.
And that's I think those are the two things that running and driving might have in common, even though they're two completely different forms of transportation. Uh,
Right.
One thing that it's that like it like forces you, especially if you're just driving or running by yourself, that is solitude. It's hard to be distracted and do both of those things, and it's hard for like other people to interrupt you, while you're doing those two things. And I mean, sometimes talking on the phone like while you're in the car, that can be good too. But it's like those are two things that like you are in a pod by yourself, and you can either catch. I listen to like college football or college basketball podcasts, and that's like when I'm here or somewhere else during the day and like I don't get to follow as much like sports stuff, that's where I can catch up on it. Or that's an hour just to think through a bunch of stuff that like, that's how you I don't think people think to themselves enough. Like I see way too many people with AirPods in at times when I think maybe they should just like be thinking about what they're doing.
Right. I like to, like, when I run, for example, like I'll run in the neighborhood that I live in, but sometimes because I do it every day, it gets tiring. So I like to find new locations where I could go, and run and be at more of a more have more peace basically, and alone time and everything. And for some reason, as I get older, like having alone time, I love it even more. I don't know what it is. Like I do, of course, like when I started the whole fighting thing, I wanted people to know me and everything, but for me now it's at a point where like being alone is peaceful. Like I love having the cheers on fight night and stuff, but when I'm in training camp and stuff, I like to be as far away from people as possible, because like the more people you're around, like me for example, when I was in Louisville, right, even right after the fight, I had people say like, oh, come and stay over at my house, you don't have to stay at the hotel. Or before, they're like, hey, where you at, come here, relax with us. And I've had to avoid a lot of not necessarily friendships, but a lot of hanging out with, people, because yes, it would make me feel good, but at the same time, I have a lot of goals right now, and I'm focused on that. I don't know. As I get older, I'm more focused on more important things instead of just having fun and stuff. Of course, I still have fun, with my family and everything, but the past few fights, I didn't get to see much of family, and I think it's made me a more dangerous fighter.
That's an interesting way to think of that. And like technology makes that a little easier. Like I mean, I'm 25. I'm not much older than you. But if you'd asked me like a few years ago, like how much do you think you'll be like talking to friend or hanging out with friends? I'd be like, I don't see why that would ever change. But like at some point, it just does.
It does. And when we're younger, like I was even having a conversation about this today. When you're younger, the time is still the same. You still have 24 hours in a day. And as an adult, it's the same thing. But I feel like as an adult, we're more worried about, let me get through this day so I could go to bed and be, relaxed. And as a kid, we're more worried about, I don't want to go to bed. I want to have as much fun as as possible. So I think that's the biggest difference with growing up and everything. Time doesn't pass faster. We just make it pass faster.
And yeah, I mean that's another thing. I mean, the last few years have been so weird with time, and I think not that people were always so mindful of it during COVID or whatever, as much as they said they were, but now it seems like there's a lot more people that like want people to hang out more. Like now that it's whatever, I don't want to say it's wrapping up because honestly, I don't know, and I don't follow the news close enough to say
Right.
like, you know, that's something that we didn't like, people didn't have to deal with as much for the last few years, and now you kind of do. And but you know, as you get older, you know, the amount of time that an hour, you know, the percentage of your life that makes up gets smaller and smaller and smaller, so it feels like it's going faster.
Right. And it's important to do the things that really matter. Like if you have close family, for example, me growing up all my life, I've been around family. So that's why it's kind of hard to stay away from them. But as I get older, sometimes you have, even if it's family, you do have some family that's bad family. So I try to stay away from those type of people, and then stay away. Like what I noticed with friends growing up, and you might agree on this, you might know what I'm talking about. I didn't drink or smoke or any of that, so it was hard to hang out with a lot of friends. And there have been friends that like really know me and stuff that have straight up told me like, hey, this is the reason maybe you're not getting to hang out with people as often, is because I've always, as long as I remember, I've had goals. Like even when I was 14, 13, just starting out, it was never like, hey, I'm just going to do this just to do it. I always wanted to plan ahead, like, okay, I want this type of life, and this is what I have to do to support that lifestyle. And when you don't drink and stuff, people think you're not as fun. Like me in person, like I'm very positive. I'm good to be around and everything, but because I don't drink, people won't hang out with me. So should I start drinking? No, I still focus on what's, good for me, and I don't have to change for anybody.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, I think like socially, it runs the risk of people being like, he thinks he's like better than this, but it's like
Yeah.
you just have different goals, you know, and
It does suck because sometimes it comes like that, as if you're trying to show that you're better. No, but of course drinking is bad, but I'm not gonna sit and judge somebody and say like, hey, you're worse than me or better than me. It doesn't have anything to do with that. It's just that that's not my thing, and I don't want to be around that. And like if somebody's drinking, for example, I've had friends, family, drink next to me and everything. I don't have a problem. I can still sit with them, have a normal conversation. But the minute you see me differently because I don't drink, that's when it becomes an issue.
it's very interesting, man. Who doesn't want Ilyaz around? I don't get it. No, that is interesting, and I. But that goes back. You know, you're a focused dude. You know, you ever since I met you, and so haven't met in person, but like ever since like we first came into contact, like that was very apparent always. Like you always had like a big checklist of goals, and one thing I think I can see is that you're narrowing down that list a little bit and prioritizing better to things that you can control, in the now. And you know so that is interesting about friends and whatnot. It's different for me, because I just got done with law school at that was in Lexington. A lot of my friends were from out of state. I'm up with my fiance in Columbus. I really don't know anybody here, so that's, I mean, I know people here, but they're all like my fiance's friends. So we see them when they're doing something from work or something. But it's like, we have a dog here and we have a cat here.
Right.
That's who I see most of the time, like during a day. But that sometimes at certain periods of your life, that's what you need if you need to focus on something.
There are some people, like even my the middle brother that I have, he's 21 years old. He used to make fun of me before. He would be like, we would get into an argument or something, and then he'd be like, oh, that's why you don't have friends. And then I would tell him the same thing, and he used to tease me about it. But like now that I grew up, I used to get mad at it back then. I used to be like, wait, what's wrong with me? Like, why do I not have friends? Why am I not hanging out with people and stuff? And it's because for the longest time, I remember like just being in training. Like if most of the crazy things happen at night, and I'd be at the gym at that time. So like, of course, I'm not going to be able to hang out or go out and do this and do that. But it's not necessarily bad, because at a certain point, I used to worry about like when my parents, for example, would call me and be like, hey, why aren't you home? It's getting late. And this would be 8, 9 p.m. And I was, 18, 19 at the time, you know what I mean? And they would be worried about me. And I knew, like at that time, I was like, why are they doing this to me when none of my friends are getting phone calls from their parents, saying like, where are you and stuff. And now I understand, because they knew I had goals back then. And had I kept, going with that lifestyle, where I'm going out and, missing out on training or something like that, I would just drop everything. And I'm kind of thankful because at the end of the day, it's very good to have friends and people you go out with and stuff. But the only people that stick around is your family. No matter how bad you become or what type of situation you're in, only family will understand you.
And and I saw that you just you and your wife just celebrated an anniversary, so congratulations on
To your anniversary. Thank you very much.
And that's the other thing too is like when you're married, that is a very specific there's family and then there's your family, and those are two and you gotta always keep what's you always have to keep in mind what's best for you specifically, and that more direct family it lays down a whole different set of priorities.
And being married, it's changed me a lot too, because of the fact that now not only am I doing it for me, I think we've talked about this before, but I'm doing it for because I married somebody's daughter, and I want to make sure when I tell them, like, when they would ask me like, hey, what do you want to do for a living and stuff, like, for me, even answering that question used to not necessarily make me cringe, but I would be like, I'm telling them this, but like, how realistic is it? Like, how long can I do this and make a living and everything? And we've been married for 2 years now. Everything is fine, and luckily she supports me and everything, and her family now supports me too. Especially, they're saying that she's the reason I've had the success because I've had the finishes and everything, and they're like, well, she gave you good luck and everything. And we were laughing about that the other day. And I think just having a family and caring about family has made me a different man, and wanting to make a better living, and not just say I'm a fighter for a living, but actually making it come true.
That's funny about them asking you, what you plan to do for a living. It's like,
I
it,
remember I used to be shy. Like, um, anytime, even family members, when they would ask me, they never took it serious, because imagine being 18, 19, and somebody comes up to you and they're like, what are you going to do for the rest of your life? And I know it's not a rest of the life type of thing. You do it, until your body gives up on you, and you just, retire at that point. So for me, it was the easiest route because I love doing it, you know, and I knew if I do it right, for example, right now I'm 23, I already have 13 fights. If I do it until 35, then I could live the rest of my life, enjoying it. Instead of like some people, they have to work till 65 and then enjoy it afterwards. For me, that's, there's nothing wrong with that. But at the same time, I don't see myself, living that way. I want to retire, when it's time, and live my life with family and with the people I care about.
That's such a funny question, because yeah, I'm sure what might go through your head, like when someone asks you that, is like, man, there's probably been a lot of dumb kid who like weren't committed and didn't have what it takes, who also gave this answer, and people probably laughed them out the door. But at this point, yeah, you've done way more than enough to show that like that's a real possibility, and that has to instill a lot more confidence and support from them in you, to see that your hard work is paying off, and there is stuff in the future to look forward to in this fight game.
And they don't really have to, like, even when it comes to family, they don't really have to believe in me, like think, okay, I'm going to be the best in the world or whatever. I just need them to not be negative about it. Like, if I, say this is what I'm doing, I just don't want anybody to be like, just do something else. Like, even now, after the win streak that I'm on, I've had family, and it pisses me off, but you obviously can't say anything. They're like, why don't you just choose anything else? And I know this sounds crazy, and maybe it might sound like, okay, he's not telling the truth. I can go work, even if it's 2 jobs, 3 jobs in one, a day, whatever it is. When it comes to, providing for the family or whatever, I'm willing to do whatever it takes, to provide, how, no matter how hard of a work it is or anything. But I've made it to where in my mind, fighting is the only way to succeed for me right now. And ever since I've done that, ever since I've changed my mentality, before this whole win streak, even when I was turning professional, in the back of my mind, I always had, okay, there's this backup plan, that backup plan. Right now, I know if, fighting doesn't work out, I could still do something. But in my mind, I'm making it seem like, okay, this is do or die. Like, you have to do this. There is no other option. There's no other thing you should be doing. This is what you have to do. And I think it's changed me a lot.
And there's it seems like there's a lot more to supporting a family, successfully than, financially supporting it. There's a lot,
Right.
especially like looking forward to like if you're gonna have kids in the future and whatnot and all that business and for for the happiness of your family in general, it's a lot better for you and everybody when you're doing something that makes you happy. You're setting goals and you're achieving them through the hard work that you've put in. That teaches, for kids, that teaches very valuable lessons about the value of all of that. And so there's a lot more to supporting a family than just the financial aspect.
Right. Luckily, I have a family that's, helping me out, whether it's financially or, supporting me. It wasn't always like that, but right now I think I'm in the best situation possible. And, for me, it's realizing sometimes like, life gets tiring. Sometimes whatever you're doing, even as much as I love fighting, sometimes it'll get tiring, just constantly doing it every single day. And on those days, I like to take a step back and remember, like, uh, when I was a little kid, like I remember my parents like living in a village in Russia. I know people hate Russia. I'm not Russian. I just want to put that out there. I had to do that at the fights too. I'm Turkish. But basically growing up, not everybody would have pay-per-view and stuff. But I remember like people would go and watch Mike Tyson fighting, back in the 90s and early 2000s and everything. And just being a kid back then, although I didn't get to see, the fight itself or anything, but just seeing that, everybody's watching that. Or when Habib was coming up, he was really big with my people. And, I want to do that one day. Like right now, especially when, people are buying pay-per-view and watching from home or just showing up to watch me, it humbles me and it makes me happy because I'm like, these people, some of them don't even know me, never met me, but now they're, out here congratulating me or watching me. And even if they don't know me, like at the fights, for example, some Americans will come up to me and they can't even pronounce my name, but they try. And I'm usually thinking, like, most of the times before, it would be like, oh, what is your name? And then you say it and they don't even pronounce it right. They're walking past. Now they want to know it and they want to know how you pronounce it and where I come from, who are my people are and stuff. And that kind of makes me happy.
Well, that's the thing. There are few as great of unifiers of sports. I think there's like three sports that unify the planet, like at this top level. I think like basketball. There's a pro basketball league in almost every country in the world. Soccer, obviously, there's a high level pro soccer league in almost every country in the world, and almost every country in the world has their own form or a unified form of combat sports. And
Right.
especially in this has been the first time we've talked since all this Russia stuff popped off and everything. And I don't keep up with news, and so whatever. But that's a great thing, dude. After it was like right after the Russia thing started, the main event in the UFC was what was it? It was Bobby Green and Islam Makhachev. It's like, dude, what other sport would, the moment after this happened, would there be an American and a Russian sharing the same space being headlined? That's a great thing about it, and that's what I love about MMA fans too, is like they don't care what country you're from either, or what where people are from. That's a great thing. And people, especially in Europe and in obviously in Turkey and whatnot, they love to see their country represented on that stage.
I know some, I forget if it's soccer or some other sport. They took, Russian athletes out of the, out of competition and stuff. I I kind of disagree on that. Like imagine, Islam, for example, in the UFC, not getting to compete because he, fights out of Russia. It's not fair because those people have nothing to do with the government. And just like in the US, like if, for example, if I was somebody from the outside looking in and, I knew you through the internet or whatever, if I judged you because of the president of the United States, you know what I mean? You can't judge people based off political, things. And I personally don't like politics because of the fact that you never know the truth. There's always, little things that are hidden from the people and the real reason why there is this war or where, separation and this and that. But luckily, like in the US, you do have a lot more freedom. Like if I lived in Russia, I don't think I would have became a fighter. That's just plain and simple. Like I would have been on the farm, and that would be my life. That's it. Is it peaceful? Yes. You have more privacy and stuff on the farm and everything, but at the same time, you don't really live your life doing any, living your dreams or anything like that. So I am happy to be here and happy to be able to fight and, represent two countries and, be accepted by two different nations, basically.
That's a great thing to hear. And yeah, I again, that's what's great about MMA is, you can represent, all the places that, make you who you are. And
Exactly.
I don't think MMA fans, I mean, depending on the audience, I remember in Louisville when Mark Munoz was fighting CB Dalloway in a main event and the crowd started chanting USA. And it's like, dude, Mark Munoz is from Arizona. Like,
Right.
he's not, he's
So,
just,
some people are not educated and you can't really do anything about that. Like, even when someone is discriminating, they usually do that based off, how they were raised and stuff. So you just gotta let people like that. There's nothing you can do. Like, for example, when they were, chanting USA, like I know Mark Munoz too, and I should they have done that? No, but they did it. There's nothing you can do about it, and unfortunately, there are people like that, and we gotta live by them.
but I think that MMA fans are some of the more like, on average, educated fans. And that was not always the case. I mean, going back, to the tap out t-shirt days of MMA, when all they would ever show of MMA was, on like ESPN was Chuck Liddell and, Keith Jardine bleeding in brawls. And
Right.
now Habib Nurmagomedov and Islam Makhachev and Hamzat Chimaev are worldwide superstars. And
Right.
not just in this sport, they are worldwide superstars. That's, a whole different level than, you would be used to as an MMA fan even, I mean, 10 years ago.
Right. You are right about that. You are right about that. It does educate a lot of people and show a lot of different fighters from different nations and you know show, especially when they're like on a main card or something and they're showing like behind the scenes and their training camp and where they come from and stuff. So that part's good because it's educating the fans and everything.
All right, so we've been talking for about an hour 15, hour 20, which pretty good for that's about where we're usually at this point. So I saw like on Snapchat, you've been going about the process of getting like, your sponsor banner, getting that to be a fun. So what's that been like? And like, you want to shout out any of your sponsors, talk about, what that process has been like and, yeah, I guess I just kind of want to learn about what that's been like and how that's been going for you.
Basically, when I wanted to stop fighting and everything, it was because of the financial, reasons. Eh, I was having fun, fighting, but if it wasn't supporting me financially with the family and everything, it was hard because when I was single, obviously, it was, if my day got as an adult, I can't just think about today. I have to think about the future, just in case an emergency happens, I need to have the money and everything. So I had one of my relatives, his name is Rustem. He was the one that kind of had the idea. He was like, well, I'll get a hold of, a bunch of the people, Turkish people, see what, they come up with and everything. And then he was like, okay, I'm going to become your first sponsor. And, he paid me. And then next thing you know, more people. And the thing about people is when they see someone else doing something, they join in. Even if they don't care, they join in and they want to help when they see other people doing it. So next thing you know, I have over 20, I think maybe, 20, almost 30 different sponsors who some of them are paying after each fight. Some of them are paying one time and then, never again. But I never ask anybody like, hey, can you do it or something? They, most of the times they offer and, I accept and I don't tell them how much, they usually, the price satisfies me and everything. But I, for the future though, I'm going to try to get a few of them that are bigger sponsors and work with them. So I don't, bother everybody else and have just the main sponsors and everything. And slowly down the line, I do want to open a MMA promotion. A bunch of people were talking to me about it and making me like in charge of it with the matchups and everything like that. That's something that interests me. I want to work on that too.
That's awesome. No, That's a cool way to hear it is how that, like, that got started, and how you wanted to progress, and it sounds like you've been easy to work with on that end, and I'm sure that's what turned.
Because they're helping at the end of the day. Like imagine if somebody approached you and they were like, I'm going to support you in this way, like financially. I can't really tell them like, hey, that price doesn't satisfy me or something, because they're helping from the heart. You know what I mean? You can't really put a price. Like a lot of the sponsors will be like, hey, how much should I pay you? And I tell them, look, I don't ask for a specific amount because of the fact that it's whatever you desire to give from the heart. You know what I mean? And sometimes like they'll be like, okay, but what price range and stuff. That's when I tell them like, okay, this is the lowest that someone has given me and this is the highest. And after the interview I'll kind of discuss if you want, but I don't want to talk about it publicly, because obviously a lot of people see it and everything, and not everyone wishes you well, and I'd rather not talk about it
I got
for them to hear about it. But like family and stuff, they know how much I make from the fighting and I'm comfortable with it.
Yeah, that's awesome. Has there been a good amount of like Turkish businesses in like the Dayton area and whatnot? Okay. Might have lost him for a second. Let's see if it comes back.
Yes, it's been I've a real company and businesses that are helping out. Is my voice cutting off?
It cut off.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, you're back now.
Yes, it's a lot of trucking businesses. I've had stores, like a few Turkish stores. I've had a realty company, who sponsored me, and it's whoever. Like I'm posting them, I'm putting them on the banner and everything, and that's, and they don't really, like when they sponsor me and stuff, they're not really expecting anything back. They don't want, not necessarily they don't want it, but they don't ask me like, hey, since I'm giving you this amount, this is what I want in return. Or if you win this much money, I want this in return. None of them are doing that way. They're just supporting. With me being Turkish, especially, they want to see somebody in the UFC or in Bellator, and like, raising the flag, and, and at this point, like, there are some active fighters in the US that are Turkish, but not as many as there should be. And then like I think me doing it is kind of showing them like an example. Like no matter what nationality it is, you need the doctors, you need the basketball players, you need the pilots, the everything. You want somebody in each job, in each career, so that growing up, like let's say I only people I could look up to was a soccer player. I obviously would want to, try to be a soccer player. But if I knew there was fighting, or if I knew there was a doctor in the town or, village that I lived in, or you have more people to look up to, and then kind of choose what you want. And I looking up to me or something, we're doing it because I did it. And I had in that March fight, actually, I had a guy who was making his MMA debut. He messaged me, and then he saw me at the fights. We fought on the same card, and I was on the main card. He was in the first fight. He came up to me and he's like, I started doing this because of you. Like I got interested in fighting because of you. And that was crazy to hear, because like our age wasn't that much, there wasn't a big age difference, but because I've been doing it for so long now, I'm able to motivate people my age and, even older to get into the sport. And it's very good to hear when I, experience things like that. Not just that, but sometimes with fighting, that's the last thing I'll say, I'm sorry. But with fighting, sometimes like, of course you get recognized on the internet and everything, but it's different in person. I remember I was in a store at a Kroger's. It's located in the area you go to, kind of. So the Dayton Mall is right next to it, and I was in the grocery store helping out. I as a job, I take care of this legally blind American guy. He's what is he, 50, he's about to be 59 years old, and I take care of him. I take him to the grocery store, to his appointments and everything. And we were at the grocery store, and he's waiting for them to cut up cheese for him in a specific way and everything. And an American guy in his probably 30s, mid 30s, comes up to me, and he's like, he pronounces my name right. And I'm like, okay, this is already sounding like he knows me or something. And he's like, I watched your fights, man. I love it and everything. And I was like, what the heck? Like, because I've had Turkish people approach me, but now it's like Americans approaching me too. And it's very humbling. Like, it's crazy. I never, in situations like that, I'm like, damn, I should have said more. I should have done this. And then, Even a day before that, I was at the mall and I had a random, kid come up to me and he's like, I watched your fight. He walked across the food court to come by me just to shake my hand. You know what I mean? So that kind of stuff is very humbling and, amazing.
No, that's awesome. And like, for Turkish businesses that are sponsoring you, at the end of the day, they don't have to, ask you to do a lot because it's got to be such a big thing just to raise the Turkish flag. And that way, when people see a Turkish business that's flying the Turkish flag, it's much more identifiable to them, and it's something that is a little more familiar to them, and it's like, oh, okay, I recognize that. That's a big factor that a lot of people don't think about.
Yes, because when you're going out there and raising the flag, like me, for example, on my shorts, I have the Turkish flag and the American flag because I want to represent. I am gonna get custom made flag. I know I've seen other people walk out with it where it's like half, one nation, half another nation. I want to do that so I don't have to walk out with two separate flags, and stuff. It would be much easier. I'm gonna work on doing that for the next fight. And when you're out there, you're not just raising a flag, you're showing these people like how you are, how you're acting. Like, let's say I go out there and I lose and then I disrespect the opponent. Now not only are they going to look at me being bad, that I'm representing the flag in a bad way too. That's why I try to, when I go out there, try to be as professional as I can, try to watch what I'm saying, and because I know you actually, you don't know who you're going to inspire, who's going to watch it and get motivated by that. Like, because I run, I posted and everything. I've had kids or even adults send me screenshots of them, like how many miles they're doing and how much time they're running and stuff. And you would think it's simple, like everybody since humanity has been around knows how to run, if they can run and they're capable of running. So for somebody to be motivated to get up and run because I'm doing it, you just can't describe it.
God, that that's crazy. And I always forget, like, I forget because, like, I have your number and we, like, send text messages. But it's like, I forget that you have, like, a pretty, like, you have a fantastic social media presence. Like, you have a big following too, like on Instagram in particular.
But when it comes to the following, like there's a lot of good things and bad things about it. Having a larger following and more people know you, it's done a lot of good for me. Like, for example, I can go out there and get in trouble and stuff because obviously a lot of people that are following me, not everyone is supporting me. Some of them are secret haters, and they're waiting for me to mess up and fail and everything. So it motivates me to not get in trouble. But then at the same time, what I've noticed with like each fight, there will be new people, of course, that come and support you. But then at the same time, the people that used to, you slowly start to see that they hate on you. They start hating on you because of the success and everything. So I wish everybody that followed me supported me. They don't. But if you hate but still follow me, that's still good for me too.
All right,
Keep me on
Ilyas.
the right path.
Yeah. So before we get out of here, is there anybody you want to shout out? Anything? Any last thing you want to say? Anything that is on your mind that you would like to express? The floor is yours.
Not anyone specific. I think it would take a long time just to go through everybody specific because so many people have helped me become, the person I have become. You know, um, there have been hard times, obviously, like, and even family. There are times where like when family can't even help you like get through a hard time or anything. So obviously, if, most importantly, God has been there. And I know like I don't really like to get into religion or politics or anything like that because I'm a fighter at the end of the day. And since that's the topic, I try to stay on topic as much as possible. But there have been times where you're like, okay, like I'm done with this or I'm done with that and stuff. And then God shows you a better way and like you're motivated to continue and your life just becomes so much better. And sometimes I even get surprised. I'm like, wait a minute, how did I just get out of this situation? And then having family around, like I haven't always had the best relationship with some of them, but at the end of the day, family makes me very happy. And then coaches, I don't care who it is, if I don't have a good relationship with them now and had it at one point, each one of them from the first coach to the last have helped me become who I am, are going to motivate me to continue to be better for the rest of my life and to continue living the way I've been living. And friends, I'm happy, whether they were friends with me still or they're not friends, it doesn't matter. they showed me the way, and they helped make me, and I want to thank all the, supporters and the sponsors. And because without the sponsors, I most likely would not have been doing this, they've helped big time.
That that's all good. I don't know if you would agree, but I really think that like I've seen like a noticeable like evolution in the perspective that you adopt, and I think it's served you really well. And I think that, the results of your last 3 fights, speak to that greatly. I think that, I think you prioritize better. I think that you compartmentalize that. I think that you don't, things that maybe bothered you at one point aren't bothering you or as much.
It doesn't. I used to the and I could give this advice to anybody. It's not just MMA. If you live your life trying to impress people, you will never impress anybody. Like, because success is like when I fight, right? Even if it goes well for me, you remember it that night, and then that's it. That, happiness is gone. You have to focus on what's next. It's weird. Before I used to, sit there, and of course you watch the fight again, or you watch the success again and everything. But for me, it's like I get past that, and you feel good for a little bit, and then you're like, okay, now what's next? Like, as long as you have what's next, it motivates you to keep going. Like, if I just sit there and focus on that, like, I know some people, like, they'll have one fight or something and it goes well for them, and that's all they focus on, and they're, celebrating it for months and stuff. Like, you got to focus on what's next now, and take, get a rest if you have to, and then work on your next fight, work on your next plan, and then move one fight at a time. I know deep down I can make it into the UFC. I can make it into Bellator, but right now I'm fighting for B2, and I need to focus on B2 to be able to make it to the UFC. A lot of people make a mistake of being at a certain point in their life, but they think they're in a certain other point, and that's when they mess up. Just enjoy life. Enjoy the simple things in life, and don't make it crazy. Don't live for somebody else. You can't impress, like, a lot of people I'm around. They try to impress people with money, the materialistic things they have. Like, I used to be one of those people who, being young, you want a fast car, you want this, you want that. But for me, growing up now, like being older, I don't really care about stuff like that. Of course, I like to have fun and, go out and everything, but it wouldn't be to like a club or something. I like to go out and eat, enjoy movies or something like that. But just being around simple things that make you happy.
Well, folks, this has been another interlude episode of RotoBaller's official MMA podcast. Tap that. Huge thank you to Ilyaz Mamadaliyev, who has now been on the show 4 times. He is the favorite guest of the podcast, bar none. Follow him on Snapchat at official_Ilyaz. That's the I believe that's the Twitter handle as well.
And Instagram. Yes.
And Instagram makes it easy. You can follow me on Twitter at RotoBrady. I will be so there was no pick episode this week, but I will be in the RotoBaller Premium MMA DFS chat from 4 to 5 p.m. on Saturday before the RDA Rafael Fiziev card. So, folks, that was it. I hope you enjoyed this. I certainly did. Have a great weekend, and peace.